Not personally, but we have a lot of mutual friends.
He's a nice fella. He's not what those movies seem to be. He's not.
Well, we were given an X on this picture for excessive violence. And I had a screening for Hefner, right? The guy, the head of the board. And he makes a list of all this stuff. I said, oh, very interesting. Our black hero kills a black bad guy. That's okay. It's when our black hero kills a white bad guy that's bad. Gee, you know, I'm going to show this to Spike Lee and see what he thinks. And I swear to God, the next day he gave us an R.
Let me ask you this: is it a film that makes fun of the genre, or is it a satire of the genre?
It's an urban fistful of dollars, Jimbo. It's a spaghetti western, a lot of style, a lot of humor. I mean, a lot of humor. Tony Powers is playing a mafioso. It's gonna be fun.
Mike Rubenstein's a movie that I've made and one that you've made shows he's out hustling.
That's right.
I saw him at the screening I went to.
Oh my God! What a piece of work! Huh?
And he kept, it was Mario Tedesco.
The name.
When you see him, he's he's in The Godfather. He's a big burly guy, and he has a little voice like this. And so Mario and Mike play Tony Powers' bodyguard, and he was funny. It was really.
Put the mic on.
Yeah.
So much for the boom man.
Yeah, right.
One of our
I can't hold
it. Better ones on you.
Okay. So we're gonna take it from the beginning and build up chronologically through the years.
From the beginning
This
of
is-
what? My
Bob
life?
Downey, this is your
gonna be
life.
edited
It's going to take 5 hours. You know how old I am? Come on.
Okay. Bob Downey, welcome to Biograph Days, Biograph Nights. Here to talk about your new picture, Too Much Sun, as well as your fascinating career in the motion picture industry.
It's called a career, huh?
This is your
Good.
life, Bob Downey. You're from New York originally.
Yeah.
Where were you raised?
In Greenwich Village.
Down the village? And
In Long Island and Greenwich Village. Both.
when you were a kid growing up, did you entertain any notions about going into movies or any kind of creative enterprise?
I wanted to be a baseball player. And I was actually pretty good at it. And so when I was in the Army, I pitched against the Yankees when they came to Japan and did pretty well. And when I got out, I went into a Class C minor league in Valdosta, Georgia, and did pretty well. But you can't tell now. At that time, I'm 6'3". I would lose so much weight because I weighed 150. By the 7th inning, I weighed 140 or 142. So I never really, and then, of course, when I wasn't a ball player, I put on weight and I could have done fine.
Who did you pitch against? What Yankee team was that?
Billy Martin.
They were probably
Whitey
world champs
Ford.
at that,
Oh,
at
yeah,
that time.
they were on the tour, and they didn't lose to anybody. These days, these guys go over there and they lose once in a while, but they didn't lose.
When you were a kid growing up, I'm sure you probably went to a lot of movies.
Not really. I didn't really get into it till later on. I mean, I'd go, like, as a kid to see whatever it is you see on Sunday with the serials. Like I was kidding with a friend of mine earlier, The Girl from Jones Beach.
Ronald
Stuff-
Reagan and Eddie
yeah.
Bracken.
Virginia Mayo. I remember things like the first sexy movie that I ever saw as a kid, I was shocked, was Robert Ryan and Barbara Stanwyck. Do you know the one I mean?
Oh, Clash by Night?
Is this in the house? When
Yes, and
yeah.
Marilyn is in it, and Paul Douglas.
I
There's
think
like
so,
a triangle
yes.
thing.
Yeah, that's right.
Fritz Lang, yeah.
And there's a scene where she just puts her hand up the back of his shirt, and it was like, I can't believe this is going on in a movie, And so I must have been 10.
Did you have any kind of affinity, towards comedy at that time? I mean, Martin and Lewis or Abbott and Costello or anything? I mean,
Yeah, I liked it, but I didn't love it.
So how did, from the baseball, how did you, get into making films?
Well, I started, I left out that when I was in the Army, I got thrown in the stockade, and we can go into why, but I was in the stockade, and I had a pencil and a pad, and I just started writing stuff down, and pretty soon I was just writing scenes and tried to write a novel, and finally did, and got out, and knew I had done that, and was happy with it. And then I just got into a writing, directing workshop in the village and fooled around with acting a little bit and read Jonas Mekas, who said anybody can make a movie. And I had written some off-Broadway plays. So I said, wow, and I found this cameraman, and we went out and shot something, and it's been downhill ever since.
Did you have a creative mentor at all who, during that time, was it pretty much something that you found in trial and error?
Exactly. It was trial and error, and usually more error. But it was exciting, and when you edit, as you know, when you edit the stuff together, oh, left out something. The Charles Theater, you might have heard of it, on Avenue B, would run films 24 hours a day for weeks. Anybody could bring a movie. So I immediately had a place to show the first thing I shot, which had no sound, and we just played, rock and roll behind it, whatever the music of the day was, and it would be exciting. It would be people walking in and out, hundreds of people, and bringing films from all over the world. Ron Rice showed up with Flower Thief with Taylor Mead in it, and Brackage had stuff, and blah, blah, blah. And I was lucky, I guess, because my stuff lent itself towards whatever the word humor is.
This was kind of like what they're now calling, in retrospect, the American New Wave that, Cassavetes was doing things like Shadows, and people were actually getting out there and making their own films and not, feeling like if they wanted to make a movie they had to get into a union or have an uncle who worked for Paramount, and that must have been a very exciting, very exciting time.
Yeah, the idea that if you were a writer, you could actually write with a camera and get actors and not have to take your plays to a theater and find a director, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it was great, and it's black and white. There was very little color, and therefore things are much more believable no matter what you did. The black and white gave us some kind of reality.
And this would be Ball's Bluff?
Yeah.
And was this this is the one about the Confederate soldier?
Yeah, that wakes up in New York 100 years later, yeah.
And Babo 73?
That was up next. That's a political thing, and when it's about a President of the United States played by Taylor Mead, and a right-wing advisor and a left-wing advisor who keep switching on him. And Kennedy, that shows you when this was in Europe, and we knew we could get into the White House, or we thought we could, and luckily we did. So we took our President of the United States into the White House, and since Kennedy wasn't there, there was not that tough kind of security. And then I'm running down with a wind Kodak Cine 100 camera that you get 22 seconds, and then you have to wind it again. And we're taking our President of the United States down the hall in the White House, and of course the generals would go by, whoever, and he would salute him like he does, and they would go like this, which fit the script perfectly, that he was the president. And the film opened up in the Garrick Theater, it was called, next to the Bleecker Street, and the critics, most of them hated it and wouldn't write about it, but one guy wrote it was the funniest thing of the year, or whatever, Brendan Gill of the New Yorker, and then I got a Guggenheim grant, and it's been downhill ever since.
It's still going down. What did exactly the Guggenheim grant? What, just gave you money to make another film? Or
Yeah,
was it
but
like
no, it was more like a grant. You didn't have to be too specific. I've gotten a national endowment where I just said I was going to make a film about vegetarians in Alaska, and they just sent me the money, and they never bothered me. But that was another story.
And of course, the Guggenheim grant was administered by Crazy Guggenheim.
Thank you.
From Jackie Gleason, yes. Your first feature was Chafed Elbows,
Yep.
feature length, and that was came from the Guggenheim grant.
A little money went in there, and then I gave them credit on another film just to be official about it, and then the budget was so tight that we spelled it wrong, and it's still in there wrong. And I think it's Putney Swope, and they call it the John Simon Guggenheim. It was just terrible, but they can always, I guess, or did check it out, and they figured they helped make that film. That helped.
And what kind of crew-wise? I mean, how many? This was real minimalist.
Chafed Elbows?
Yeah.
I took the rushes to the drugstore. I think I've told you that. It was stills, mostly. And then I shot some of it, and a guy named William Waring shot some of it, and lucked out and gave people, the usual, everybody gets a percentage, and thank God they've all made money. Made some money.
And that led to Putney Swope.
No, there was another one called No More Excuses. They closed almost the same day it opened because of Robert Kennedy's assassination, because there was an assassination of President Garfield in the film in a satiric way, and it just hurt the movie. Again at the Bleecker, then Putney.
Well, Putney, finance, was that completely independently financed?
Yeah, the guy who put up the money was literally looking for Milton Berle in a hallway, and the guy that was my agent at William Morris said, I got something more interesting than that. I don't know why this guy was looking for him. I've never asked him. And he gave him the script, and then the guy put me through enough torture to whatever. I'll do something with you if you promise not to do it. Use it. Just you and I. Will you?
Yeah, yeah.
I was with he and his wife one night, and he's just about to give us the money to make the movie and get started, and he's a stutterer. And he says the word and he went on. It was like a minute. This is good. A minute, and you imagine, of course it was motherfucker, and of course his wife knew, and of course I knew, and it was going on. And literally for a minute, and I'm not kidding, that long, she finally said, shut up and give him the money. It was a great moment, and then the next day we were in business. It was one of the funniest, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
a classical moment. I can't do it because now we're kind of friendly.
Let's go. Are we still
No
going?
longer
Yeah.
married.
Okay.
They're not married anymore, and yeah. And that's how that got on.
Now, obviously, on Putney Swope, you had complete creative control. I mean, only
Yeah.
you could have made that film. I mean, that's truly your vision.
Yeah, it was wonderful to do, and mostly total freedom. A couple of questions, like when we were all done, there was a Nazi who said, throw another Jew on the fire, in context of the movie, which we left in, and it fit what was going on with the movie. And the backer, the same guy, comes to me and said, we can't have that. I'm Jewish. I said, well, I'm half Jewish, blah, blah, blah. And it went on, and the editor had to separate us on the street outside a screening room, and finally it just stayed in.
Hold on a second, John.
Okay.
Here. No.
Okay.
Heard you talk about it. We are rolling.
Had you ever worked at an ad agency?
No, I worked at a place that named called Filmex that made experimental. Well, they made commercials, but they opened after Chafed Elbows. He hired me to work in an experimental division, and that's how I think Putney Swope was born. When this white guy, me, is working with a black guy who says, "Bob, you and I do the same job here, and you're making more money." I said, "That's great. Let's go into the boss and talk about it." So he went in and he stated his case, and the boss said, if I give you more money, I got to give Bob more money, and we're right back where we started. I said, God, that's worth a movie. And that's how it really started.
Is it true that that your wife at the time lost the script, the only copy of the
No,
script?
she lost the script to a play I wrote about people played missiles in silos waiting to take off to the Soviet Union, and the actors acted out these. One was malfunctioned, another blah, blah, blah. Other one couldn't wait to go. And she lost the play, the only copy I had, and I had to rewrite it. And it was actually better, but I was terrified that I couldn't remember what.
Yeah, yeah. How long what was the shooting schedule on Putney?
It's a great question. I think it was like 23, maybe 25 days.
And you actually went up doing, when I watch the film now, I can hear your voice, and
Well, I'm sorry to say the man never learned his lines. Somebody had to say them. And since he had a beard, then the cameraman pointed that out to me one day when I was frustrated. Gerald Cott said, you might not have any trouble dubbing him. Look at him. And I could see him over there. We were in Connecticut shooting a commercial. I don't even know why he was there. Had nothing to do with his part of the movie. And he was talking, and you could see that almost anything could come out of there except what I wanted to. And so I didn't bother him anymore about it, because every night was a hassle. Do you know him? Yeah. So anyway, that's how that happened.
in when the picture was released, I mean, it really, kind of heralded again. I mean, it was this kind of American New Wave, as they call it now. It's kind of independent filmmaking, which is very exciting. And you must have been. It obviously did well at the box office, very well.
Did well, and Easy Rider came out the same week, and they just followed each other the two of them would, keep opening all over the country, and it was great. And I had a great distributor who really loved the movie, and he brought in that ad one day with the guy. He opened the film 12 days after he took it. That's hard, because he owned the theaters.
Mm-hmm.
And
This was Cinema 5?
yeah. And the ad, blah blah, up Madison Avenue, with this finger and this girl on the, in the hand. He brought in and he said, "What do you think?" I said, "Oh, it's better than the movie." And then he said, "I'm worried if you like it." So then he goes on the street asking anybody, "What do you think? What do you think? What do you think?" And people didn't know what he was showing them. Truth and Soul, Putney, Swope, up Madison Avenue. And finally, somebody liked it, and he said, "All right, we're doing it." And the guy had this idea for any movie in his closet, and he was so happy, and that was the ad, which was wild.
Then Hollywood comes calling, I would imagine.
Not
after.
really.
Doesn't that happen?
Not
No?
really. I mean, there were a couple of, but not really.
It was just too dangerous for them, I guess. Or
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I wasn't paying attention, I guess. Or thank God, maybe.
what did you do after Putney?
Pound.
Pound came next?
Yeah, and United Artists, when we turned that one in, thought it was going to be animated, so that was a tough one.
Now, this
It's
is
a picture they expected to be an animated cartoon. It's done with live actors, which threw them. And what it was about, what it was about. And it was not fun. And it ended up on a double bill with Satyricon out of United Artists. X-rated for language, not violence even, language.
Is this the picture that Bobby Jr. made his debut
That's
in?
right.
At the age of what?
Well, let's see, that was
Baby?
1970. So, 5.
Greaser's Palace.
Thanks.
Greaser's Palace. That was a Columbia release, wasn't it?
No, Greaser's Palace was no release. The lady who put up the money released it, and then Rugoff picked it up. Nobody wanted that movie.
Huh.
And by the way, nobody wanted Putney either except Rugoff. We were ready to put it on the shelf. Bud Smith and I said, "That is sad." After all this work, and we thought it was amusing. And Rugoff just took it and blah, blah, and everybody else, and people who turned it down then picked up other rights for the movie, like foreign or Canadian or whatever it was.
What was the genesis of Greasers? How did that come about?
Well, this lady wanted me to make a movie, and this is going to be a tough one again. I'm asking you to be kind. She lives in New York now. She said, "What do you want to do?" I said, the Trinity drops into a Western. The Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost pop into a Western to get it right. She said, "Fine, go write it." And I wrote it, and I came back, and she gave it to her husband who had a lot of money. And he read it, and he said to me, "Is this going to make any money?" I said, "I don't think so." And he said to his wife, "He's charming, give him the money." It was sweet. The moment was sweet. She might not appreciate this, and she's trying to get films on, so I ask you to use discretion. But that's how that happened, and we went out with Neely to New Mexico and made that movie. And
Yeah, that picture has a great look to it. It looks, I mean, content aside, I mean, it looks like a studio picture. I
yeah,
mean, it
well,
looks
we
really-
shot early, we shot late, we had 3 cameras on everything, including Mr. Murray was one of the cameramen. We found him on the street, and since he had one eye, we thought he'd make a good camera. And he wanted to be a production manager, and Neely, or whatever, and Neely said, "No, you've got to do something else." So he was the 3rd cameraman. So everything had to be shot with 3 cameras, hidden behind trees, because the light's so elusive.
Mhm.
And that's why it looks so good, because we really planned that one out.
Were you living in New York during this period and cutting in New York?
No, we cut that in California. Bud Smith's whole thing is, I'll do one in New York, then you got to come to L.A.,
Mhm.
then I'll do another in New York. So Putney was L.A., Pound was New York, Greasers was L.A., and Sticks and Bones, the television thing, was New York.
Now, so you and Bud Smith really go way back.
Oh, yeah, that was his first feature. And mine, too. I mean, Chafe Doubles is a featurette.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What was the story on Jive? That was, which I've never seen. That was
That's the most abstract and has never been distributed, and it was at Filmex, the festival in Los Angeles, and it's a very abstract movie, and we use, I think, I've said this so many times, I'll try and make it fresh. There are 42 actors and 87 backers, and it's a $300,000 film, so figure that out. It was painful. We would shoot for 3 weeks, raise, you know. But the music's terrific because it's all stuff that was thrown out of other movies that Jack Nietzsche just handed to me, and I gave him a check. And then David Sanborn put his saxophone on top of that music to make it original yet again. And it's a black and white movie that's very abstract and fun and whatever, and it's out on tape now. There are 5 copies.
Is it really? Who's
Yeah.
the distributor? Do you know?
It's a friend of mine now in San Francisco. I think it's called Golden Bay Video or something. If you're ever interested, I'll
Yeah, I'd
get
love
it.
to see that.
Yeah, I like this one a lot.
So then, you're basically, going from film, going from film to film, financed almost, by patrons and independently, and that's got to be very, very trying. I mean, did you make overtures to, mainstream film companies?
Well,
or?
there were a couple of people who kind of said, we want you to come in, and there was a movie with Burt Reynolds and Raquel Welch about cops or medical something in New York, and they weren't happy, United Artists, with the director, and I was editing something else, and they called me, would you take this film over, could it have been Bill Cosby and Burt Reynolds and Raquel Welch? Oh no, Alan Garfield, Burt Reynolds, and Raquel Welch.
Flare Up? Is that no?
No.
Well, then also Cold Turkey. Did you work on that?
Well, I was the second unit guy on that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of fun, and it was, he had asked me to direct that movie, but Norman Lear, and I said, you wrote it, why don't you direct it? And he said, you really think I can? I said, yeah. He said, as long as you're my second unit. I said, fine. So I went out to Iowa
Mm-hmm.
and helped out for a while, and there was some funny stuff happened then, but it's not a bad movie.
You almost did a picture, or talked about doing a picture with Anthony Quinn down in Mexico.
I wrote one.
Uh-huh.
I wrote a script for him about the history of Mexico, where he would play everybody from Cortez to whoever was in charge when we wrote the script. So when I turned it in, he said, this completes my trilogy of great movies. I said, oh, wow, what are the others? And he said, La Strada, Requiem for a Heavyweight, and Zorba the Greek. And I said, this makes 4. And he says, don't be a fucking wise guy. That was the moment of pure insanity for me. I mean, I tried to not laugh, So that was the project with him, and he took it down to Mexico, and they threw him out of the country and told him, because they put up the money. Said, we're not doing this one.
How did Up the Academy come about?
Got a script. What do you think? I said, it's okay if we make it 10-year-olds. Yeah, we might consider it. I went in, they said, let's talk about it, but let's get into pre-production. 10-year-olds might be a little radical. Got into production. We can't do 10-year-olds. You can only work them half a day. I said, all right, maybe 12, 13. No, got to go to 15. At least met Ralph there, though.
Ralph Macchio. It was his first film, I think.
Yeah.
Huh? And that was, how involved was Mad Magazine with that?
I don't know why. I think Warner Brothers owned Mad Magazine or just bought them, and they tried to... I never understood that. I said, what does Alfred E. Newman have to do with this academy? If you want to make him the commandant, and they said no. Then there was a rumor that I wanted to make a dog the head of this military academy, which wasn't even true. And then there was trouble from then on, and then it was committees about what's funny and what's not funny. And very painful, and a lot of it my doing, I've got to say. I mean,
There was a studio.
yeah, and I think that a lot of it was my problems too, about thinking that because I couldn't do it the way I wanted it, that I had to fight through everything, and it was probably unreasonable on my part also. But
I guess they were trying to go for the National Lampoon's Animal House.
yeah,
Mad
and it wasn't
Magazine's Up
that.
the Academy.
It could have been a sweet thing about real kids, And at the real place where we were shooting, a 10-year-old burned the mess hall down. And I said, see? And they said, that's unreal. Well, it wasn't unreal.
Yeah.
There was no mess hall. You know, so I felt justified but not vindicated. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just felt all making the movie that everybody was 6, 7 years too old. And that's why it wasn't working. Ron Liebman was okay. He was fun to work with. He tried.
Sticks and Bones.
That happened before Greaser's, right after Greaser's Palace. Yeah.
And that was done for Joe Papp and CBS.
Yeah.
But that had kind of an ironic, what happened when it opened? When
Well,
it
it threw it off the air. Then Joe Papp went on the CBS and said, CBS are a bunch of cowards. They won't even put their own product on the air. Well, what had happened was he made a deal to do Shakespeare on there plus another play. Well, they figured he was safe, but he had this Sticks and Bones. And then we took all the laughs out and took the Ozzie and Harriet stuff out of the play and really made it a horror show about a returning POW who his parents talking to killing himself, and they'd put him out in a body bag. And that's what happens.
And then, of course, the timing with the...
With them and POWs coming home. Well, eventually they did put it on the air, and with no commercials, which was thrilling to see something on CBS or any network.
Mhm.
And it became, from what I hear, in the mail they got, the POWs were very grateful for this evening. So it worked out.
Yeah, yeah. Is that available on video?
From me,
Yeah.
you got to call me, Jim. I
'Cause
think you
that's a
can
film
get
that-
it.
I mean, that's something that should be seen. I mean,
Had
know,
you seen it?
I saw a like a bootleg copy,
Okay.
but the quality looked.
Yeah. CBS has it somewhere.
So something like the Museum of Broadcasting should,
Well, it did go on the Arts and Entertainment or somewhere. Laura, where was it we saw it? Remember? It was on one of those cable things, and Joe said, I'm going to make some more money. Don't you remember?
I don't remember where it was. I remember seeing it.
Yeah.
because they have a pretty decent collection over there of different TV TV specials. Okay.
But the good thing about doing that was it's something I didn't write. It was fun with Joe Papp. He definitely was looking to do something different. He said, I watched this play for 6 months. Change it. Do whatever let's make it serious. It was a comedy. I said, great. And it was just a thrill to work with him and to see his fire as a producer. And
Now I read your script for Moonbeam. It was very funny.
thanks.
Now, you've pretty much, disowned that film. That's not your film. I mean,
No.
it's a mess that is bits and pieces of. Yet your film, yet your name is on the picture. It was just
I tried to get it off, and I went to the DGA, and it was a close vote. Because, it was admitted that whatever it turned out to be was not, because they got another filmmaker in to go shoot 5 more days or whatever. That's not the point. It didn't have the tone that was interesting. Because I went to see it, I said, maybe they made something better and I'll be happy. I didn't have to do the work. But they didn't, and I got angry, and it was a very bad period of my life anyway, but a good period because I met Susan in Too Much Sun and the co-writer of Too Much Sun. So Moonbeam is worth it for that. But no other reason can I look back on that thing. Well, meeting you's okay, that's good. But the rest of it, not a good time.
And then you actually acted after that in To Live and Die in L.A.
If you call it that.
Oh yeah.
I
Working for William
tried. I gave it
Friedkin.
my best. It's good for every filmmaker to have to jump out there and do it.
Had you known Friedkin prior to
Oh
that?
yeah, I
And-
knew him. He's a big fan of Pound and Putney, and
And of course Bud Smith.
Bud Smith became his editor
Mhm.
along with doing my stuff. They had worked on documentaries at Walper years ago, but in fact, Billy called me when he was doing The Exorcist and said, "I got to find Bud," and he did, and they did a lot of stuff together. And now, Bud, do you know what he's doing?
Well, I know he directed Johnny
Yeah.
Be Good.
He's the head of post-production at Universal.
Is he really? Well, yeah, he worked on Darkman on Sam
Exactly.
Raimi's
And
picture.
they've promised him another movie to direct if he stays there and helps out with all the editing
Mhm.
and whatever. I guess the staple statement from all I can gather is from Bud is that every movie is a half hour too long when it's turned in. And his job is to calm the filmmaker down and get him to tighten his film up.
mhm.
It's not a bad idea for a studio to do that.
Generally, when you work with an editor, do you does the editor do the assembly first, and then you come in, or are you pretty much a director who likes to be in there all the
Well,
time?
Bud
or-
and I, John, Bud and I would get in there every day and just work together on every moment, every take, blah, 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 pick this, and I'd stay there. I was fascinated by the process anyway. And we've had great times, blah, blah. But this time, the editor, Joe DeAugustine, I kind of let him, I knew what he was doing, but I would let him find his way, and then I would go in and talk, and then we'd talk about it and whatever. I mean, he just wanted to make sure that I wasn't riding him because this was his first big film or
Mhm.
whatever, or little film.
He had been an assistant.
That's
on
right, on
Moonbeam.
Moonbeam. Yeah, that's where we met him. That's another good thing about it. See?
Hey,
Every disaster, something happens. Laura, Joey, and you, and I'll even say Forrest. I'll say it.
well, it doesn't count because you know me before.
Yeah. Anyway, and Joey, he's now working, because Bud's a loyal guy,
Mhm.
at Universal, cutting a film called Mobsters, which
Oh yeah, yeah.
is a lot of actors and money,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
co-editor with Bud's son. So he's a happy guy, and he's very happy with California and blah, blah.
Getting back to Freakin', I mean, was that an easy experience for you?
You mean being in front of a camera?
With
With
Freakin'
him?
directing, I mean, I imagine he's a very intense guy.
Well, I mean, there are things that I feel, because I'm a filmmaker, that were improvised. I wish had been in the movie, because I thought for some lucky moment I got lucky with those actors and everything. There were three of us in the room, and
Mhm.
it just became nasty and whatever, and I don't know how it happened, so that was fun. And it never was in the movie. And there's some stuff I saw of myself that looked self-conscious, but then I saw a couple other things where I really believed I was a cop. So that was great. But generally it got me to Los Angeles, and Laura followed immediately, and we've been there ever since, and we've been writing, and it's been okay.
Hey, you directed a couple of Twilight Zones, which was
I'm
fun,
very
especially
happy
Truth or
with-
Consequences. Yeah,
Very happy with both those.
and I imagine those were pretty quick shoots.
And I think 1 day or day and a half on one, and maybe 2 days on another, and it was good discipline for me. It was fun.
And then now on Rented Lips, why are there two different
Again,
versions?
since I didn't write this thing, it was a job, and I thought, because I think Martin Mull's a funny guy, that we could make something happen. Well, nobody wanted to change anything, really. And when I made my cut, the producer, Vista Films, came in and decided they didn't like it. And this is an interesting story. I'm at a poker game, and I'm depressed, the movie, I don't like it, and it isn't funny to me even to this day. A guy says, how could you make a movie as rotten as Rented Lips? I said, well, it can happen, and I kept playing. He said, well, my company has just bought the video rights to all those films from that company. How would you like to go back and cut it the way you want? I thought I was in a dream. Cut to, he put up $75,000 for me to go back and do what I want, and that's the one that's at least out on video. The original cut that the company made is the one on TV, which is what I've been subjected to a few times. But listen,
So your cut is on video,
yeah,
and their cut is
yeah,
on cable, say.
exactly. And the film itself is horrible.
Well, it must be such a pleasure. I mean, it must have been such a pleasurable experience to do Too Much Sun, and I mean, and really have it come out the way you intended it. And it's a real Downey film. It's fun. It's satirical. It's eccentric. Through and through. And the cast is wonderful. Can you talk a little bit about how that came about?
Somebody gave me a script at the racetrack and said, Bob, what do you think? And I read it, and I told Laura about it, and I said, yeah, but there's a germ here. but I think it can get done. Because actors, if blah, blah. So it was really one man and his son. And he's dying, and he's saying, you're not getting a dime until you make me a child. And the son was not interested in women. I was so boring, but there's something to that. So Laura and I put in the ladies, the sister and her girlfriend, the priest, who was originally going to be Alan Arkin, but he couldn't get out of Havana, which was in Dominican Republic, so it's all absurd. And we put in my son and Ralph's characters. And then Laura and I did, she says 14, maybe 14 drafts. And we had it read aloud by my son and Laura and other people who weren't even close to the characters. And Larry said, you know, you get me a couple of names and you can do it. As long as you keep it certain budget, blah, blah, blah. And like you, I mean, I had twice as much money as you, and I thought I wouldn't get there. And your film, ours was $2 million, and then it went to $2,250,000, and then I had to remix, and I had to go raise the money.
Yeah.
They couldn't give me any more.
In terms of, you know, and this applies to Too Much Sun and some of your other films, I mean, there's always a kind of improvisatorial feel to it, or a spontaneous feeling to it, which, how much of that comes from, you know, say improv or
I can't tell
sustained rehearsal?
sometimes, because we rehearsed a lot and fooled around a lot. I think Laura can be more objective. I always tend to think that it's all writing. I don't know how it happens sometimes. That actors bring things and it's all somebody's writing, if that's the word, making it happen. My son, the first night he shows up, Andrea Martin, you know, he's coming out of Air America. He's happy to be with us. Andrea Martin's singing a song. He's under the covers, and he starts masturbating. So the crew, and we just a pin. We were in pain, laughing, but we don't want to blow the. So it was like we could have really keeled over ourselves. It was, looking and this, and then it was all over. He doesn't even crack a smile, you know. I said, well, that's funny to me. He said, good. Hope you can use it. And then she, whatever she does. And, of course, that was something that I kind of felt he might do because it was open to that. But when he started really doing it, when we did it again, she then decided that she's making up the song, too, that she was going to put her foot down, as to, so to speak. And so it turned into a nice scene, funny. So that was the most improvised. That was his first night, and that's how we started with him. And it was uphill from then on. He's fun to have around. And John, the movie wouldn't have gotten on without him.
Oh,
that's reality.
Yeah, I mean, he's become a big movie star.
Yeah?
But he still takes direction.
Well, he loves fooling around. Yeah, he does. He does, I think, and he wants to make films, and he writes, so yeah. Laura's got a better thing on the way he works than me, and, you know, I can't be objective.
Let me ask you, you once told me the 7 rules, Slavko Vorkapik's 7 rules of directing.
Yeah.
Would you be so kind as to
Well, let's say
impart
that
them?
let's say who he is first. He was the guy who came, Hollywood brought from Soviet Union in 20s or 30s, you might know more about that than I do, when it was, to bridge some of these static movies with montages to, you know, when the fighters are fighting and they do the towns and when the calendar's going and the clock's going and blah, blah. So he became the guy. Every movie that needed a montage, they called Slavko. So cut to the place that made experimental commercials, Filmex. He was there to help directors be better at what they did. But directors who make commercials, at least the ones I knew, had such egos, they didn't want to know about how they could be better. They were happy photographing whatever they were photographing. So I would go to the lectures with a guy named Bob Sukas and just be enamored of everything this guy was talking about. And his basic rules, 7 rules of directing, which I deduced from this broken English that he spoke. He didn't have his rules, but he had them. They were there, and they were the following. If you're going to photograph a scene, don't have anybody enter left and right. That's theater. have them come to you or from in back of you. If you're going to pan, say, from you to Laura, have something in the background moving, whether it's a bird or another person, to move over there so the camera just doesn't move. Cast against type. If it's supposed to be one type of person, it should be another person that's totally different to play against that. One zoom per movie. It's a lazy man's dolly shot. Don't let people sit down and eat and talk, because they usually don't get up, and if one of them does, he's not coming back. It's boring. Get people to move. Shoot early, shoot late, if you can when you're outdoors. And the final rule is break every other rule.
That's great.
What?
Don't repeat a shot.
Oh, don't repeat a shot, which, exactly, I'm sorry, that's good. Is it when, it's the whole essence, sorry. Basically, it's if we're sitting and we have to sit and talk, at least, when it cuts from you to me, now it goes back to you, a slightly different thing, a new composition, a new angle. So at least it's not ping pong, because he claimed that an image that was not exciting is dead in less than 7 seconds, and maybe quicker. So don't repeat a shot is almost enough of a reason to get through, and anybody can direct if you try, and blah, blah. But the one thing you leave out is you got to have some kind of a screenplay. And the screenplay for Too Much Sun is not the greatest, but we did everything we could do with it before we shot, and it was fun to make the movie, so I'm happy about it. But it's not something that I'm going to want to see over and over. You know, I like it. It's funny, and people seem to laugh at it.
Well, the music element to the film, too, is fun.
To this one?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad you like it.
Yeah.
Great.
And
He's
then you
never
have-
done it before. That's the actor Tim Robbins' brother.
Really? First score?
Yeah, first
Really nice
score
film.
on this a film this long. Yeah, he's done a very short, and he's done stuff for this brother's theater group.
And the photography also. Very
Well,
good. Excellent cameraman.
He's great.
Bob
He's
Yeoman.
a drugstore cowboy, and we met on Rented See? There it is.
Mm-hmm.
It is a meeting place, these movies. And every crew has its own story, and it's like a family every time, and the ones you meet, yeah.
Well, even on Moonbeam, which was not for you a particularly happy experience, there was certainly a sense of family, you know, on that movie. And I assume that
We'll get to the
because it's several
abuse themselves
several
for-
different families maybe, but
Yeah, that's
and,
true.
and you get that sense also from Too Much Sun.
Good. I'm glad, because it was. And
The sense of fun, that people are having fun, and
Oh.
that it really translates. It translates to the screening that I saw. I felt that that people picked up on that.
that's great, John. I'm glad, because we've been a little, after coming from Boston, where the people who we spoke to and the publicity were so positive, and even if they weren't, by the time they finished talking about the film with us, they felt better about it. And then to come to New York, where I know it's jaded and tough, and what we're going to go through here. It's fun to know that you could feel that. It's important.
Yeah. Well, Bob, congratulations on the picture, and
Thanks.
Everyone go out and see it.
Thank you.
Got it.
Okay.
Jonas Meek names from the past.
I need just 5 minutes with Laura.
Okay.
You get the other side.
Thanks for reminding me about the man. Well, John, someday I'll do the same for you.
I always want to
Talk
get.
about you and Steve James.
I want to get Forrest into the hot seat.
Don't bring me around.
Did you? There's a great essay on biographers in the New York Times last Sunday in the book review.
Oh yeah,
Should
yeah,
check.
yeah.
Because they talk about the main criteria for a great biographer should be a passion for his subject and a reason that he knows why he's there investigating this. And
Well, I'll tell you, that's
Thank you.
why. I mean, we'll only do interviews with people that we respect and like, and that's, I think that a lot of the particularly the TV and cable interviewers who do everybody, by the time someone comes along that really
We just saw a couple of those before you. You should have seen this group. There were two of them, and it took them 20 minutes just to plug in
to back up.
and to pack up. So that's 40 right there.
And Laura, in Too Much Sun, you
Yes, yeah, wow.
In Too Much Sun, you co-authored the screenplay with Bob Downey and Al Schwartz, and also co-star. Um, did you find any problems crossing over in those two areas?
No.
You knew your lines.
No, not that either. But it wasn't like it was just something that I was writing. It was my own imagination, and I was, caught between self and character. It wasn't. It was much freer because I was working with Downey, and we were just sitting in a room throwing lines back and forth, and so that didn't bother me. No.
How did the accent evolve? Was that something that was in the script, or?
Well, to tell you the honest truth, I think Downey was afraid I would be a terrible actor, so he thought he'd throw an accent on it and maybe they won't notice.
That's not true.
Just as a way to find something funny to do with the part, really, And we decided the night before that I should do it, and
It must working with a lot of your scenes with Andrea Martin. She must be a gas to work with.
she's great.
Did she have, again, she has like this kind of improv kind of feel to her, like where you never know what she's going to do or say.
Well, surprisingly, she was very concerned with the way, in a logical way, that she was going to play the part. And, very sort of method, what is this person's past? And she played around with all of that, trying to find the style of the character. And then by the time we got to actually do it, it was like, do you think this is the same character I did yesterday, But it was that kind of film, too. I mean, everybody was sort of shifting into different things, and because everybody comes from such a different kind of comedy, the big question was, are these styles going to mesh? Is everybody going to be in the same movie? And in fact, I think that's one of the things that makes it so fun, because everybody's just a little...
Yeah, I mean, think that you have Eric Idle from the Monty Python background, and Andrea Martin as SCTV. That's an interesting mix of people. In working with in observing and working with Bob Downey Sr. directing Bob Downey Jr., could you comment on that? I mean, how they is there a lot of tension, a lot of flaring temperament and raging?
Well, as you might guess by seeing it, no, there's not that kind of thing. They don't really have to say much to one another, and I can see the way Junior's work, the way he works, that he's learned a lot from his father. Their styles are similar. Junior's open to trying anything and doing anything, and Downey Sr. won't preclude him from anything. So Junior's very interesting to watch. He looks like he's kind of not paying attention, and he's just bouncing around, but he actually finds physical things that become his character, and really interesting stuff with his body that he comes up with to do, and absolutely doesn't edit himself ever, and that's remarkable to watch.
And that also comes across.
Yeah.
Something interesting in the film, which is kind of sign of the times, is that amidst all the insanity and the farcical situations, there's a scene where everyone is exchanging their AIDS-free cards, which, again, sign of the times, but at least it shows a responsibility.
Yeah.
And even in the sex scene with Eric Idle and Gracia, again, a responsibility, so that you're not just making just a comedy. There's some sense of of a responsibility to the audience, especially the kids who would see it. So I think that's great, and we applaud that. And again, congratulations, and thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, John.
John, you've got to get him to tell you, not on film, but just tell him what Andrea Martin said to you.
Downey got all these things out of me because we were always out laughing together. She had recently broken up with her husband, with whom she was still madly in love, and she was checking out all the men around, and finally, sighted upon one. She just said, "God, I'd just love to hold his balls for 2 hours."
No, an hour.
For an hour. I told Downey, and everybody
I told the whole crew, but I wouldn't tell the guy who she said it about because he would have been totally embarrassed. But and then she said, "How dare you tell everybody?" And then she started laughing. So what? That's how wild she is.
She went to my alma mater, or I went to her
Emerson?
alma mater. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow,
So did Norman Lear, actually.
that's right. Listen, why is that town so great for films? The colleges.
It is, and you know why too is because there's a lot of small schools like Emerson, where your first day of school, when you're a sophomore, a freshman, you can walk in and get a camera and make a film.
Oh, anybody?
Any student, right? As opposed to like USC or NYU or Columbia, where you really have to go through the politics of the film department, and like maybe by the time you're a senior, you get to do a film, or you get to be a boom
That's
operator
right.
on a film.
But
But
what about this? When did we come to you? Never.
no.
I hate those cutaways.
Yeah.
So what do you do
I'll
to
find
tighten up?
clips of all your
Dissolve?
movies.
It,
Do you dissolve ever?
Never. I cut everything here. Go right to the clip. Just get to the point.
Really?
yeah. So it's
when
like
you
it's
walk
all.
out of here, it's on him, huh?
No, I just introduce the show sometimes, or I'll do half-hour specials. Just you never know who John is. You never meet him.
Yeah, it's more like because that
I
way the
hate those
interviewer
with
isn't
the nodding of the
obtrusive.
head and asking
You know what I mean?
questions. Looks
Which
like
they
Rob.
obviously
Just
shoot
get to the
later.
clip.
We tried to when we first started doing this, and we did this. I mean, you must be like one of our, like it must be like 100 people that we've had over the years. It's like we tried doing that at first, where we do the interview and then cut to me going, "Oh, really?
You can tell.
I see."
And I was in the
You really
editing room.
can.
going, This sucks.
No, it just
I can't take it.
and
Eddie,
also
did you ever try doing it with you and somebody else on a camera together with two cameras or anything?
no, we never
to
had
me,
two
the
cameras.
person- we just came to the idea that whoever we're interviewing, that's the star. And people always want to know who he is because he's.
Oh, maybe it's
sounds
better
good.
because since you're a filmmaker, you don't want to be.
We're going to
seen-
get a mirror for him to interview himself.
It just,
I
it keeps-
could put the mirror there.
I'll
just
tell you
answer
what.
your-
When you are ready for your interview, if I'm in town, I'll go through your whole thing, including this day, and I'll interview you if you want.
Don't you hate these interviews where like the interviewer is like trying to, this is my show and you're lucky to be here. It's like that reminds me of a story that happened to me when I hate that. I mean,
Listen, my scariest one was the one I was most excited about was I did the Carson show twice, once with Paul Reiner and once with Carson. And Carson, let me do this for you. He looks right through you. He never sees you. And you see the show and you would think he's
There's
this
looking right.
timing, he's brilliant. It's scary to me. He's like this. He won't look at you.
yeah, too much sun.
Maybe.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I love
I'm
this
sure it's
about
going to do well.
montages because Seymour Stern in one of his lectures talks about how there was just a department at MGM for montages, the montage department.
That was him.
Yeah, that's where I first heard the name.
That's him. Isn't that wild?
Seymour, when he was in his 20s, was hired by Universal to come there and teach directors camera movement.
Really? Isn't he a writer also? I mean, a screenwriter?
He wrote the camera treatment for the Good Earth,
Okay.
but and he tried directing, but he was horrible at it. He's
Where is
dead
he?
now. He's
Where
dead.
is he now? In a graveyard right near here? Or
Great story is Sidney Pollack said, I just finished working with him. He says, I'm doing electrical course. We want to come up, write my biography, the whole bit. Seymour dies. I hock everything I have. I turn Sidney down. I'm going to go through through Stern's papers. I found out a year later he was dead. The house is a mess, shit house, papers all over the floor. I was picking up letters from important directors from the floor. I have spent the whole day going through everything. There's an electrical storm starting outside. I'm in the closet and I find this container. So I'm shaking it. What the fuck is this? And I'm trying to open it. I can't open it. It's him.
Holy
That
shit,
night
they
there's the
can.
biggest thunderstorm of the century. I jumped out of bed like Seymour's up there going, I'm trying, Seymour. Thank God I didn't open it up.
Oh my God.
His last words to his wife was, when she says, what should I do with all your stuff? He says, just don't give it to my enemies. That was it.
How old was he?
60. He died on Griffith's birthday.
He named his son,
Griffith Stern.
right?
Is he in film business?
No, he's driving a cab in Vegas.
And where was this happen? This house? Where was it?
In Canada.
In Canada.
Yeah.
No, I read him in magazines and stuff.
Oh, I have everything he's ever written. I've got all the unpublished Birth of a Nation notes. that he never finished. He was his own worst enemy. He was ahead of every major film writer. They all wrote to him. I have correspondence with him and Herman Weinberg in the 20s.
Weinberg, my God.
Weinberg used to come here all the time and hang out. When he was broke, I used to buy his autographs from his scrapbooks.
Herman? He's
Yeah.
lived next door, yeah.
I got directors' autographs that will
What's
blow
he?
you away.
He's dead too.
He's
yeah,
dead.
yeah.
But what, didn't he?
He never made any money from every book that he owned. Well, he wound up selling the rights for just to make money.
He used to subtitle a lot of the foreign
That's right.
pictures.
Yeah.
That's right.
He'd bring me over to his house. He says, I finally went into storage, took out 35 years of my stuff. This size pictures of Marlene Dietrich and Greta Garbo we had autographed back in the 20s. I would go through the scrapbooks and I'd give him $100 for Eric von Stroheim autograph, for Jesse Lasky, for the list runs on of directors.
What a
Sternberg autographs. And he had 35 years of correspondence.
And
with
he
him.
You would
Preston
have to, you would have to
Sturgis
sell it off.
Oh,
as-
you want-
as he,
Want to really? I have Preston Sturgis. I'll show you something.
Uh-oh.
You're a hip big
We
fan
lived,
of his?
big fan. I lived down the street from his Players Club.
do you really?
Yeah, Laura and I lived.
Were you guys still in
right
Beechwood?
No, oh, that's right.
What is
No,
it?
we're on Harper, right down
you-
from the Chateau.
654-5662 is wrong?
No,
that's right.
right.
That's the right number.
Yeah.
Okay. Really outrageous.
So you're still doing a film review, huh?
Um,
I got a lot of stuff shipped from New York
Film
recently. That
Well,
we've
that's
had-
what I've been trying
no,
to do.
Storage.
I
stuff
publish my
we've
own
had in
newsletter
storage.
now,
I
my own
found
writing. I
lots of
produce my own
old,
show.
You got to
Yeah,
do it
yeah,
for
yeah,
yourself
yeah.
anyway, don't you? And,
Yeah.
and almost
Just,
any
I
field.
just had
Distributed
an
when
interview
distributors come,
running
they go,
this month
trust me,
with,
give me your
Winston Miller
masters.
from
You know,
Roger.
I go,
yeah.
film director.
Original
I said,
Darling Chronicles.
now my big one is Coming to
Yeah.
America,
Still
$400 million,
Yeah, like
didn't break
80s,
even.
Beverly Hills.
I pay royalties out
Yeah.
there. Original directors of the
It's great 'cause,
commercials I
like,
have from the 50s and 60s.
At that age, he's like,
I pay them a royalty for their footage that they give me. There's a
Yeah.
guy.
He's dead
You
or...
mean if it goes on the
So you
air?
haven't
Well,
been
it's stock
to
footage that I
Los
sell.
Angeles.
Oh, I see.
One guy called me up
I
and
worked out
blind
there
8
last
years,
year,
named Bert Heck, heard
on a
about me in
screenwriting
Entertainment
job.
Tonight. Says, you want to see
For a
my
picture
stuff. Why don't you just send it over?
was
Truck
made.
pulls up with 4,000 commercials. He did
Oh my
Bosco
God. And
commercials,
wrote Street
RCA
Hunter,
commercials.
So have you been able to use some
We,
of it?
yeah, and we've corresponded now for
and,
2 years. I'm
uh,
trying to raise money on this stuff now and do a
It has
documentary
to or not
On
happened.
those commercials?
on those commercials.
Great.
Be out.
Then there's another producer.
Yeah.
I want to go
That's
to, I
what
find
I'm
the original
saying.
stars and offer
I
them
know that
royalties.
something will have to.
I want to go to
I think
nostalgia
that,
heaven.
you know, I'll get another
You're going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Don't worry about
very
it.
well with this.
Right now I'm in a
Or-
lawsuit with Nickelodeon. One of their
No.
producers
Oh,
came.
great.
They take my VHS tapes, made a special.
I
Or stuff
remember
in
there.
mine.
to live in
He told me to
that
fuck
home.
off because it's PD.
But he's a real,
Is he?
action market
Public
guy.
domain.
Well, please
Yeah,
duplicate
that is
it.
painful, man.
You know,
So
for
I
the
got
right budget,
a lawyer and, we're in the middle of
I just don't
negotiations and you
have
decide
to
to
work
steal
with
it.
Malcolm again.
NBC I got the
You
same
guys like
shit.
adopt this?
No, he thank
whoever
God
his
had nothing to
idea.
do with the film. He just put up.
Oh
the,
yeah, he makes
the
$1 million
negative
a year
pickup.
selling footage.
The guy who produced it actually
Little part
bought
of the
So you've
business.
learned.
You know, it's a
You've
guy,
learned.
David
I'm learning
Gill.
the hard way.
Yeah,
produced
but you'd
the
be
original
fine because
Joe.
you got the real stuff.
Or as I like to say, part of my
Peter
French,
Boyle
I
was
just give him the
his area.
Vaseline sometimes. I mean, it's
And
like
he was
ridiculous.
good. He was like the buffer.
So,
I'm
but they-
sorry. That's like
Don't be silly.
when you, I mean,
I just,
So that worked out fine.
there's some of
They
these
really
people,
didn't
like,
interfere.
they'll call up and then they'll negotiate a deal with me and
They
then
were
let's
just
go to
very,
the store and buy your stuff.
Don't have,
Fuck
you
'em.
know, you can't have
I have logos now in my commercials.
This, and again, thank God.
Some
he
guy
was
calls
married.
up pissed, he bought like,
Together.
20 of them. He goes,
She was involved.
there's got logos in the
Much
right
earlier
hand corner. I go,
than
yeah.
An editor would normally be involved.
Which is a
So
shame because I
knew pretty much
expect
what it was.
transfers and he's
What do
Yeah,
I,
they had a great
to get, because I know this is gonna be a good one and it'll save me
He's
having
had a lot
to
of-
talk
he's
on
like
future
12 people
films
from
about
Good
what I've
Fellas
done.
of playing the
Because he
mafia
did it all
upside down,
today. It
how
was
all
great.
those guys-
Oh, I'll chop it up, edit it, and
No,
then
when it's finally on, will you let us know
Yeah,
so
sure,
I
make
can?
it copies.
Yes, and,
Great. Thanks.
Because we do good
It's
stuff, but I hate
it
those
really is.
cutaways too.
Oh, I can't wait to
No,
see
no,
it.
whatever it is, I just
Right.
want it.
Yeah, for this show, it's like I want to get all your
Yeah.
films,
Yeah, they
even if it's
sell
VHS, we have to get them, we'll bump it up.
$1 and it
So when you're
made
talking
$6
about that
million
film,
worldwide.
Wow.
So that's
A lot of them
except
are
that
around.
they-
I'll have to
21st
send
had
stuff
money
to
to
you.
Yeah,
release
if
it
anything,
theatrically.
if you could just do
I
it
got
through
a
John and
booking
get it all,
for
I've
us
got everything in the other
on,
room.
Great.
I got a book
That's
for
what maybe not
42nd
moving
Street
to LA.
You
myself.
don't, you're not missing anything.
You know John
Yeah,
Sanger?
They complain.
Oh, the guy that's doing
They
the-
wouldn't
the,
take. They'd rather have
budget
a $5 million
movies for
profit
the
than take $1 million of that.
Yeah, he's
dollars
been,
of that
yeah,
money
Yeah,
we
I
started
know.
together.
And
in
release it
business.
theatrically. They'd rather
In fact,
do
he
something.
made me one of my offers to go out there. to work for him and Mel
But
Brooks.
they were.
A year later, I see John. He goes, Mel said the day I find the script to let me produce and direct it. First one was Elephant Man. The
Yeah,
second one
enjoy.
was
As I
Friends.
was just saying,
That's
very,
right.
very,
That's
Nice guy.
very impressionable children.
Nice guy.
He is, huh?
Super nice guy. Can't get any nicer than that.
That's great to
He
know.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And the guy that
Only one.
replaced me was a guy named Mark
Maybe
Johnson.
categorized.
Mark ends up
Yeah, man,
being
just-
a PA with Bud Smith on The Sorcerer. Or was it
Yeah.
or the one Freakin' did about the military-industrial...
He might have done it.
Oh,
And now
did
he
he
won
do
the
the
Oscar
Century?
for.
Right, but he was
Yeah.
a PA with Bud and Freakin', Mark.
Started with
Johnson.
all of them in the early days.
Yeah, but you're better off doing this. The movies aren't that great. There's only a few Francis and Elephant Man. They don't really want to... That's lucky. That's black and white and another weird one.
Yeah, to me, is I have my own little network, make my own
Yeah.
programs, and then when I have a few million, I'll make my own film.
There you go.
I don't like being told what to do.
There you go.
He does that a lot better than me. He can play that game better.
Yeah, to see him.
And he did a great job for $1 million
Best
bucks.
wishes with the
great.
film, you bet.
Got
I
it
asked him
right
if I
there.
could have this when
Everybody.
he's done. He said, yeah, and I'll try and
Yeah.
get you the films. So you
Let me
can...
do-
I love, yeah, Jive is the one that really.
Yeah, that I have. I'll get it to you. Like, well, we won't be back there for a while.
Back in LA.
Yeah,
Where do you go? How long are you down here?
just a day or two, but then we're going to drive back, so I won't get
I'll let
back.
you have my latest epic.
Oh,
Volumes 1 and 2 of Television Toys.
Thank you.
White commercials from the 50s
Do we
and
have
60s.
his film?
Yeah.
Thank what? Paul
And,
here,
hi.
guys.
You bet. Great to see you. Congratulations again. I know it's been really good.
Thanks.
But
And
tell
you got
everybody.
something cooking?
Something's moving.
Probably another thing, something else with Steve.
That's
you know?
all right.
We'll see.
He's
You
Mr.
know,
Action. He's
Definitely,
known.
definitely. He just got back in the Philippines. So he's been over there for 3 months.
He's always in the
Picture.
Philippines. This poor
Doing a
guy.
picture with Chris Walken and Maria Conchita Alonso.
Good.
So, yeah.
Chris Walker, that should be a trick in here.
We have a black Batman script.
Uh-oh.
Let's see. Good, nice
All
to
right.
meet you, Barbara.
Nice to
Nice
meet
meeting
you,
you.
John.
I look forward to seeing the film.
Thanks, man. If you want to see it, 22nd.
How's
I'll be
Allison,
there,
by the way?
definitely.
Magno Review 2.
I'm going to see you right now.
Oh, yeah, give
You know
me
where it
that
is?
number.
729.
Okay.
Huh?
Yeah, I know the place.